Hey friends, I am so excited. I know you recognize this beautiful woman I am talking to today. Look at her already ready. She is ready. I'm talking to the incomparable, the wonderful, the funny Lisa Ann Walter, and I'm
Oh,
excited. You're coming to Atlanta in like a couple days, basically, right?
couple of days I will be there and at Helium in Alpharetta. And I just want for the lovely folks in Atlanta to know, first of all, I'm very excited to be there. I'm very excited to spend time in one of the neighborhoods that I looked at when I was helping my bestie, the mean girlfriend from the Parent Trap, Elaine Hendricks, when I was helping her look for a house in Atlanta because she went to high school there and loves it and wanted to move back. So I have driven all of the neighborhoods, and I am very fond of your little hamlets and hamburgs and towns, and the where she used to live before was Virginia Highlands, and I used to call it her little village. Pardon me, because I thought it was so cute. You could go in and like shop at all the local stores and go to a biscuit place. I'm like, I am a fan of any little neighborhood that has its own biscuit place. So
Yes.
I can't wait to come back and spend some time there. I'm shooting a bunch of episodes of 25 words or less, and then we're going to do the stand-up shows on the weekend. So,
Amazing. Amazing. Yeah,
yeah,
Atlanta is so unique like that. People who don't really know, Atlanta itself is a small city, but Metro
right.
Atlanta, aka Atlanta, it's so big and it's so broad and diverse. And there are
Yeah,
these little pocket neighborhoods like Virginia Highlands. And of course, if you go to Alpharetta, people who live in Alpharetta, they don't leave Alpharetta. Milton, Roswell, Alpharetta people, they don't leave their area. So you're going to the right place. It's so gorgeous over there. But I just want to dive right into it. And I feel like I like asking the tricky questions. They're not tricky, but they're
no, let's
emotionally
hear it.
driven. But
Go ahead.
I always want to hear from women who are really in spaces that I feel like are still very male dominated. How do you navigate that as a woman? Because I feel like comedy is still very manly and not in
It's
the
very male.
ew, but it's just still such a male oriented space that it's
Yeah.
so amazing to talk to female comedians.
Well, and I was one of the OGs, I mean, when I came up in comedy in the 80s during the first comedy boom, I feel like I'm teaching a history lesson. I'm very, I'm being my mother now. You see, children, back in the 80s. She didn't talk like that. She was a New York lady who was teaching public school in downtown DC. So, and Sicilian, so very Melissa coded. But when I was coming up, there was maybe a couple of dozen female comics. The only ones that I knew were the ones that I saw on, The Tonight Show, like Joan Rivers when I was a kid and Phyllis Diller. There were acts that only performed in Vegas because they were blue, what's called blue, which is cursing. So, like Toady Fields, who you saw her on like Hollywood Squares or Mom's Mabley, but they never performed on television. So I only knew of a few stand-ups. And then when I was coming up, there were some that were from sort of the previous generation, like Paula Poundstone and Carol Leifer and all of these ladies out of New York. But I didn't know any that were a mom until I saw Roseanne Barr on television. And then I was like, oh my God, she's like a normal mom, like the ones I know. So it was really uncharted territory. You went out there and there was a lot of sexual harassment, like if you didn't sleep with the main act or the club owner, like they didn't want to rebook you, but if you did, you were a hoe and they didn't want to rebook you. It was very pre-Me Too. Like young people today, when you talk about it, are like, like dogs when you make a high sound. They don't get that there was no recourse back then. You just had to navigate it and be funny, be undeniable, because once you were undeniable and you had television credits, then you got to go and be at the clubs. And I came out of the showcase clubs in New York. The comic strip was my home club, but I used to play Atlanta all the time as one of my stops. I loved playing it there, the Punchline. Um, if I'm going to be honest, I love the audiences. I love the food. Let's be clear. And I love shopping at the malls around Buckhead. If that makes me, a very surface person, I'm all right with it.
Me
Yeah,
too. And then I'm surface with you.
I like the people, I like the food, I like the shopping. And I like that, Atlanta audiences are smart and they want to laugh. And they don't want to, they're not about judgment. They're not about like, oh, you can't say this or you can say that. And I just like to go because every show for people that don't see live comedy often, and now of course, as you say, it's still male dominated, but it's a lot more women. And still, when you go to a club to see stand up, it'll be four guys and maybe one woman on the lineup. Like you won't get a different woman's point of view. You'll get that one chick on the lineup. So I always encourage people to, watch it on TV if you love comedy, but really go out to the clubs because that's the place where you get a show you're never going to see anywhere else. Every single stand-up performance is just a little bit different. Even if I have set material, it's not going to be the same every night. It's going to be slightly different. And in these shows in Atlanta, you might even get a little extra surprise, a little bonus in the show that I can't tell you about, but it's going to be so much fun.
And I love that you say that because I think this is why media and arts are kind of coveted and protected in some regards because you can tailor make, like you have, okay, a set list, but you can tailor make things to each audience because you can
Yeah.
feel that. And I think so much of that gets lost, especially in the age of AI trending and I don't want to say like common folks, but normal people can just use AI and it's not special
I
anymore.
heard
And so I
just
think
this
it's
morning, I do what moms do. Please forgive me, young people. I found some funny stuff and I was sharing it with my kids. Now, in my defense, at least this time it wasn't puppies or babies, but it was funny stuff that people made. And I shared it with my kids. And I immediately got back from one of my fan followers. And then Quinta, my boss, Quinta Brunson, Lisa, this is AI. And I'm like, how do you know? I feel so stupid.
no, honestly, I feel
Like, how
like
can you tell?
it's getting so tricky. It is getting so tricky. I recently decided I was like, I need to do a social media detox because it is getting too tricky. It's
Yeah,
getting
that's
way too
fair.
tricky out there. It's so scary. I mean, some dead giveaways are still obviously the mouth, but
Yeah.
it's getting so tricky out there. You are not wrong about that.
I need like a lesson. I need to have, look, my generation are badass. I'm not going to prevaricate. We are the generation that nobody paid attention to. The fact that any of us lived is a miracle. We're like wildebeests. We're like raised by wolves generation, right? So we're kind of tough. But my kids for a long time were like, no, it's different for our generation. And I'm like, yeah, I know. You can't buy a house. Okay, nobody watched me ever. I was a latchkey kid my entire life. Everybody in our neighborhood either escaped or was sexually assaulted. We were hitchhiking, we were driving cars before we were allowed to legally. It was nuts. It was crazy what we went through. Some of it was fun, but a lot of it was really, you know, out there. And then, the kids are like, no, like we're trying to figure out if there's ever a job we can have where we can afford to buy a home. And I'm like, all right, that's fair. Like every generation has their thing that they're good at. Your generation not so great at customer service, but you're so good at so many things. And I think what we should do is have like intergenerational training. Like we can teach you guys how to do your taxes and have a meal that you didn't order on Postmates. And you guys can teach us everything about the phone so I don't look like an idiot. I think that's fair. That's a trade.
I definitely agree with you on that. I would have to say this is a topic of conversation. Ironically, I have with my husband. He's younger than me, and I
Oh,
get
good
embarrassed
girl.
saying I know him because he's like, I don't know how an alarm clock works. And I'm like, Okay, that's cute. Don't know how you made it your whole life without using an alarm clock, so I feel you
Did
because
this. He did it on his phone.
yes, yeah, because I have to ask him, I'll be like, "Hey, is this AI?" And he's like, "Yes or no." And I'm like, "Thanks." So I'm like, "Can you reach me in the restaurant? It's too dark." So
I'm gonna give you, can I give you a secret from my generation?
sure.
So here's what you do if you don't want to do what I do at my age, which is I pull the readers out of my purse. Like the time for me to pretend is past. I get those dollar store readers and I pop them on. They're cute though. There's a reason why Melissa wears them on her head on the show because I need to check my phone. I have to be able to see. But here's the secret. What you do in the restaurant is you tilt the menu. If the menu is laminated so it's shiny, you tilt it a little bit so it hits the light from the ceiling, and then it acts like a beam, like a high beam
Like,
on
yeah,
your
like a
on your menu.
spotlight. Oh,
If
that's
there's
smart.
Yeah, if there's a candle, you can use the candle too.
No, I can't. Unfortunately, my husband is, I don't wanna say he's a pyromaniac, but if there's an open flame, he's playing with that, so he's a little cray cray. But
No, you know what? I get it. I have a daughter who plays with, she does food art. I have 4 kids, by the way, that I know of. Because I have the most competent uterus in Los Angeles. But my daughter, she plays with food. So at the end of the meal, and she's been doing this since she was a kid, she still does it. Anything that's paper gets torn apart and made into like an igloo. The food gets made into a part of her little art project. And we're always looking over like, what are you building? Like it's insane. I don't get it, but whatever. She does it. It's cute.
I love how much you incorporate family and mom life into your reality. I mean, it's not that it's not your reality, but I
Yeah.
think, and this is something we discuss even in radio, how your generation is really the first group of women to say we matter after the age of 50 because so many, it doesn't matter if it's radio, media, marketing, whatever. They basically say women after 50, essentially, we don't exist or
You
you're a
disappear.
grandma. And I love being able to work with so many amazing, wonderful women. Like in the year 2025, and the first time in my life, I'm on an all female led team in media. And I'm like, that's never happened before. And it's so incredible to
Right.
just be surrounded by women who care about continuing to elevate women, not just from I'm a working woman, but hey, I'm a mom and this is mom life. And it's not just an isolated experience, like literally almost every woman experiences this. So I love that you really are so open and honest and bring this into your life and like openly to the public.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it started within my comedy when I had a baby right out of college, which was very unusual. My generation of women were the ones that were like, I'm gonna wait till my career is entirely set. And then at 40, they're like, whoops, I forgot to have a baby. And then you're trying your body's trying to figure out how to have a baby, and everybody had to go to, fertility help. But I making babies is something I do very well. So I was pregnant and had that first baby and then started doing stand up in the during the middle of the height of the comedy boom in the 80s. And part of the reason was because there was stuff I had to say. Like I watched comics as we discussed earlier, and I loved George Carlin, Richard Pryor. These were my first albums that I had growing up. But when I heard Bill Cosby do the birth story, like women giving birth, and he was the one that did the big 15-minute long hunk about childbirth, I'm like, why is he telling our story? This is ours. This is and back then they would shame you if you did women's material. And I'm like, we're more than 50% of the population. This is a reality in our life. Going to the gyno is a reality in our life every year. If you're lucky, you just go once a year. So now I do a bit about it and it kills, it slaughters because I always found that telling the truth about things that we experience, it affects men too. Like if you're talking about family and kids, of course men are into it. If you're talking about dating and sex, of course they're into it because it maybe could benefit them at some point. But I mean, I think you're absolutely right that having this new generation of women who are we look better than we've ever looked. We have more confidence. Listen, I have so many young men approach me to date And
Slide in the DM.
I already did it though, because I was divorced in Los Angeles and it's the law. So I already had the young boyfriend. I like guys my own age, but they tend to be more threatened by powerful women. Young men are like, yeah, go get it, girl. Like you know yourself. And they're fine with it. They're not, it doesn't put them off. But for the longest time, me coming up in the business, you're right. Women either disappeared entirely in terms of what we see on our screens, or they're the grandma wearing the apron and the tight gray pin curls and feeding everybody at the stove. Or you might have one sassy remark as the, over sexualized grandma, but otherwise you were just kind of not in the picture. And I think there were a lot of women in the business that kind of changed that perception. Listen, I was asked to be a grandma when I was 35 on screen. I had just started my shows on Fox and then ABC, and then there was a new show coming out, and they're like, "Well, you're a grandmother," and I'm like, I'm not even like, I think I was 34 years old, 33 or 34, and I said, "Is that part of the story that she had a baby in high school and so did her kid? Like they both have to be what I call trailer park young." To make sense out of it. I'm not going to, I'm a feminist. I'm not going to try to tell American women this is what you look like as a grandma. I was young and hot, you know? I'm still hot. If you don't look at the
Still
neck,
hot. It's still hot.
pull the neck back. But I mean, I just wasn't about it. I was like, if it's not part of the story, I don't want to do that. Of course, this exists, and nothing wrong with it. Like there are 35-year-old hot grandmas. That's fine, but like make it part of the story. So I think just as women started being more, confident in their lives, that is now portrayed on screen, which is great. In the old days, Abbott Elementary would have had Barbara Howard, played by my dear friend Cheryl Lee Ralph, one of my besties. We were like this from day one. And they would have had her character as the senior teacher. And then they would have had the friend be, can't we make her younger? Can't she could be like still been around for a few years, but make her in her 30s or early 40s. And Quinta was like, no, they're going to be at the same age because they speak the same language. And I very grateful to Quinta and to the network and studio for supporting that, because that's real, that's truthful.
And I think you touched on this earlier with people being from Atlanta, like we appreciate, like we're smart. And I think it's just people in general want real and authentic, and sometimes it's a blessing and a curse because I think Abbott does it so well. They do real and authentic, but they also keep it lighthearted. And I don't know why. I do feel like so many people want real, but then they want like this dystopian, depressing. It's like reality is already so depressing. And I'm a huge fan of Abbott. Like when I kind of got the pitch to talk with you, I was like, yes, absolutely. I was in the middle of like boss transitions. So I was like, I don't care what my new boss says. I'm doing this because huge fan of
Oh,
the show. I love your energy on the show. Of course,
thank
I
you.
loved you in Parent Trap, and you're like a millennial
Yeah.
icon queen. Hello.
Aw,
So we claim you as ours, as millennials. We claim you as ours, but
I will
I
take it.
just, it's one of those things. I think Abbott does the perfect job of combining reality and what's real, but still giving you that escapism because it's still lighthearted.
Right. I mean, you nailed it. I mean, Quinta is not interested, and her wonderful writers don't do, here is the lesson of this episode. It's the school to prison pipeline, and we're going to, that might be in there, but it's all going to be in jokes. And listen, I am a big fan of if you have something to say, as I said, that's why I got into stand up. But if you're not making people laugh, which is the best way for people to hear anything, like what's the point? For a comedy show anyway. I watched The Last of Us. I watched some of the dystopian, scary stuff. My kids kind of drag me into it, and then I like get so invested, I start crying. But I have to watch this stuff. Then I have to turn on Overboard, that old movie with Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell. Like I have
Love
to
that
turn on
movie.
something. Yeah, I turn on something that just makes me laugh, and I
Yes.
totally am gratified that your generation connects me and my character in The Parent Trap to comfort and being loved and accepted and warmth. Whenever I meet people after my show, the first thing they say is, "Can I get a hug?" And it's literally, "Can I hug her?" It's because they watched that movie, as my kids did when they wanted to watch some, not my movie necessarily, but a movie they watched over and over on a loop, like to go to sleep as comfort. And I get that. And the fact that I'm involved in one of those moments for them, for you guys, it makes me feel wonderful. It's fantastic. And Avid, I think now is that show for a lot of people. I see it all the time on social media, people posting, "This is the only show I watch when I fly." This is the
Oh,
one that I put on to go to sleep because it makes people feel good. Sometimes a message is there. A lot of times there are episodes that are just like desking, like, which is just goofy from beginning to end. It starts from something real, a bizarre TikTok trend that the kids are all doing, and maybe it's dangerous a little bit or whatever, but then it just evolves into madness, that we make it into like a murder mystery, where we're interrogating the kids. It's goofy fun, and I love it. I'm so happy to be
absolutely.
part of it.
Yes, and honestly, it is just such a great show, and I totally lost my train of thought. I'm gonna be honest here. I lost my train of thought. I was looking at the time. I was like, "Oh my God, I said it was gonna be 15 minutes. I don't want your publicist to get mad at me. So I'm gonna do a couple rapid fire questions. I see
My
your sweet
dog
piggy in
wants
the
to be on the couch.
background."
Look at him. Every single time, you guys, every single time.
Ready for that cameo. But I'm gonna
Bring
throw
us
just a
both
couple
up.
quick rapid fire questions at you. What is one thing in your house you are absolutely proud to show people when they come on by? It could be finger art to an award. What's that one
Well,
thing?
clearly the dog. But I would say the thing, the object, maybe although I keep it in the guest office room, but my Celebrity Jeopardy trophy. But because it's giant, it is really big, and the end letters keep breaking, the bottoms of them keep breaking off. The bottom of the Y and the bottom of the exclamation point keep popping off. But I'm really proud of it. I'm proud of winning the $1 million for the Entertainment Community Fund, and I feel like I don't have to convince people I'm smart anymore.
Oh, comics are smart.
We
Let's
are.
admit it. Any first of all, any person who I believe most any person in entertainment is so smart because the ability to have that much control physically over muscles in your body when you're making facial expressions, control of your emotions, learning skills to master a character, smart. Anybody who
Yeah.
says otherwise, get on.
I mean,
How I feel.
I was I don't want to say the victim, the result of my smart teacher mother, who anytime was in the car and like talk radio was on, we always had talk radio on. I loved it so much I became a talk radio host out here at KFI in LA for 3 years. And it was listening to my mother, "Oh, well, Dr. Art Uline is talking about diverticulitis. Let me tell you about blah, blah, blah." And then she'd be off and running. But, she taught me to read when I was 3. She taught me to love books. And I think comics have a curiosity. And people like me, I went to school to be an actor, but I loved reading about history and about other cultures. And I was lucky enough to live overseas when I was a kid because my dad was a physicist for NASA and he was on loan to a science institute. So we were traveling all over the place. I was learning about things in the world. And I think as an actor, you pull from all of your training and all of what you've read to create truthful characters, right? And when I was going to be Melissa, I didn't just go, "Okay, I'm from Philly, I'm Sicilian, I've got this, I could do it." I'm like, let me do a deep dive into Philly and into the history of that neighborhood and also the dialect so I can nail it because people think I'm from there and I'm not. That's studying. So yeah, so I'm proud of us as comics too.
Yeah. You are obviously a mom. You said that you're a mom of 4. What is your quick
I've been a
go-to?
mother my whole adult life. That's how I self-identify.
Yes. Well, you shouldn't. You should always not. That's not your identity though. That's just a part of who you are, in my opinion.
Okay, thank you.
That's the young people way of being like, you're more than just that. You're more
Yes,
than
that's
someone's
true.
mom. But what's your quick go-to mom meal when it was like, hey, I'm in a bind, I'm in a crunch, but I gotta put dinner on the table?
Oh, wow, that's such a great question. Okay, so here's the truth. I've been a really great cook since I was a kid because my mother was a teacher and I was a latchkey kid and I had to learn how to cook if I didn't want to just have cinnamon toast my whole life, which by the way, delicious. My favorite food groups, fat, sugar, little salty, great. Butter, carbs, all wonderful. But I think what I've learned how to make for my family that was this quick is what we call pot lasagna, which is basically a pound of ground beef. You put, if I can make sauce really quick, but if you don't want to do that, you can use a jarred sauce, but just make sure it's a good one. Carbones or Rayos, those are really good ones coming from the Sicilian broad. Listen to me. But I can make it real quick. Just a can of tomatoes. You squish it with your hands. You fry a little garlic at the bottom of the pan first, not so it's brown. You got to make it so it's just beige, fragrant. If it's brown, it gets bitter. And I always like to say the only thing bitter allowed in the kitchen is me. So you got to just make a beige garlic with the olive oil with the tomatoes. You add some basil. We don't do oregano in Sicilian cooking. It's much a sweeter sauce. And some people put onions. I don't put onions. Again, Sicilians is just a sweet sauce. And then you add the ground beef, right? You boil some noodles. You put that in macaroni, whatever you like to call it. Not actual egg noodles. You make it in the East Coast, they call them noodles, but you know, whatever you want to use, whatever you have in the cabinet, you put that in. If you have either cottage cheese or regat, you could put some spoonfuls of that in. It makes it like creamy, right? You could even use cream cheese if you want, but it makes it a little creamy. And then you got to put some grated Romano. They have big blocks of it at Costco. You put some grated Romano on top. If you have slices of provolone cheese, you put that on top. You pop it in the oven. Delicious. Just make the top a little bubbly. It's fast.
Amazing.
Good. Takes
That
like
sounds
20
amazing. I'm
minutes.
I'm gonna go try that when I go home today for sure. And I want to wrap it up. So I do want to ask, do you have any other big projects on the horizon you can share about or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, we got the stand up, which is this is getting towards the end of the tour. This is one of my last 2 dates before we go back to work for season 5. We shot a special last year. This what people are going to see in this show is actually new material. The stuff that we shot is the old hour. So that will be coming out soon. Don't know where yet. I can't announce because the deal is not set, but that'll be coming out. And this one is the newer material. And as I said, it's going to be lots of fun and some surprises. Um, but other than that, like TV shows or anything, no, I just was touring. And I was also going and doing speeches a lot because I feel like I've had such wonderful blessings and success with this show that if I have time to go and speak on behalf of like better pay for teachers or protections against AI, because old folks don't know what it is, apparently. And as a union member and an active union member, I'm an officer in the union and national board member and all of that. I feel like it's my duty to try to help as much as I can. So that's what I've been doing with my time, is trying to
I
help.
love it. I love it. I love it. Lisa, how can people find you on socials if they want to keep up to date with you and kind of get that inside scoop on what's going on in your life?
Lisa Ann Walter, LisaAnnWalter. No S, I'm just one person. I could stand to lose 10 pounds, but there's just one of me. And that's on all platforms, except I don't think I'm on X anymore. But I'm on everywhere else, and all my posts are there. And if you have something you want to share with me, please do. Tell me where I need to come eat in Atlanta.
Amazing. I love it. Guys, make sure you download the free Odyssey app today. That's AUDACY inside the App Store and favorite Star 94 Atlanta. So you get notified of exclusive conversations just like this one with my incredible friend, Lisa. And she's going to be at the Helium Club in Alpharetta at the end of this month. Information's down here.
20th
And
and 21st.
20th and
Com
21st.
coming up soon.
Amazing. Perfect. Thank you. So on the 20th and 21st of this month, make sure you head on out to the Helium Club and make sure you give me a follow across all socials at Alyssa D on air, and I'll see you next time.